Welcome to the Maxwell Leadership Executive Podcast, where our goal is to help you increase your reputation as a leader, increase your ability to influence others, and increase your ability to fully engage your team to deliver remarkable results. Hi, I'm Perry Holly, a Maxwell Leadership Facilitator and Coach.
And I'm Chris Cody, Executive Vice President with Maxwell Leadership. Welcome and thank you for joining. And I really do mean that. We really appreciate the listeners and the amount of comments that we get, not only on the maxwellleadership.com/podcast, which is a great way for you to make a comment, a question, or form, but when we're traveling and when we're in rooms with teams and how they use it as even just a personal growth development, which I love. And then we were just recently, several weeks ago, at a Maxwell conference, Maxwell Leadership Conference, and man, that was so rewarding for you and I.
You looked like a real celebrity. You were
whatever.
People
were
lined
right,
up.
Whatever.
Well, did you sign an autograph?
How many people said, "I hear that voice. That's Perry Holly."
He doesn't sound that tall.
Yeah, that's right. We're both fairly tall, and so walking around together, we're like, we didn't.
Yeah,
we're sitting down, but we just want to say thank you because it's so encouraging, and we're just sharing what we're learning, and we're sharing what we're helping leaders with around the world, and so thank you for listening to us. Well, today's topic is 12 choices leaders make to fuel their influence. Talk about increasing their influence. We're going to give you some things that you make choices, maybe even on a daily basis, and you're not even aware of it, that will increase or fuel your influence. And we talk about that leadership is influence. We interchange the words all the time here at Maxwell Leadership. And so what we want to do is generate some thoughts, some discussion around how do you grow this? What does it look like with some of these simple terms?
Yeah.
And you created a chart, which will be, you can download it in the Learner's Guide.
Yep.
And we're going to kind of go through this and banter them back and forth.
I think that'd be a good way to do it. And you use the word simple. It is a simple, these are not rocket science, but they are. It's so amazing to me when I get into discussions with people. Actually, we'll tell people, we've said it here many, many times, it said that people are watching you all the time. And people always agree, 100%, they agree. And then I'll say, but what are they watching for? Now, do you remember the answer to that? What are they watching for?
Where I'm going to lunch?
No.
I think about how you're leading your actions, how you're reacting. Reaction, that's another.
Oh, that's
huge.
huge.
Man, we could talk about that for a while as a leader. How you're interacting, what your behavior is. Really, when it comes down to, I tell a lot of people, we're really in the behavioral change business.
Yep.
Not only we start with ourselves first, continuing to work on our own behaviors, but then helping leaders and cultures develop, their leaders. It also goes back to the definition that we get from kind of Greg Cagle with the culture piece, which is how are you thinking, acting, and interacting
that's good,
as a leader? And so that's what they're watching for. That's it.
I love that. Although I do, when I ask that in large meetings, always someone says they're watching for you to mess up. Okay, no. There may be that odd individual that would like for you to mess up, but for the most part, people don't want you as their leader to mess up. They want you to succeed because when you succeed, they succeed. So I think they're watching you for your actions, your reactions, your interactions, and your behaviors. And why are they watching for this? What are they doing with that information?
Yeah, remember, in order to increase your influence with people, you don't get to determine what level of influence you have with them. They get to determine. So you don't walk into a room and say, I have level 4 influence with Perry Holly. That's not how it works. How it works is that Perry would say, hey, Chris has level 4 influence with me. Right. And so when you think about it that way, what they're watching for is really as a leader is how do we get from level 1 influence as a titled leader to them to level 2 where they're giving you permission. Well, they're not going to give you permission to lead them or influence them until they watch your behaviors before they watch your actions.
Yeah, so I'm trying to determine, am I going to let you lead me?
Yeah.
So these 12 things,
let's do it.
They're simple. Maybe we should do a little point counterpoint. I'm going to give you the easy side. You can take what I think helps your influence.
I did notice it was the easier side, so I appreciate that.
I give you the helps influence, and I'll take the could hurt your influence.
Okay.
So why don't you go first?
Yeah, the first thing we have here is what could actually help your influence is we have the word ask. And
versus tell.
Tell.
Okay.
Right? So ask for us would be, are you really curious? Increasing your influence. You've got to ask questions. Good leaders, right, ask great questions. And you have to do that in order to be curious. When you're curious and you're asking people questions and you want to know their point of view, then it's going to increase your influence. It's going to help you.
Yeah, and then if I take the tell side of that, is I'm going to tell people what to do. I'm kind of leaning on that level 1 influence again. I'm not. I'm the smartest one in the room. Like I have all the answers. So I like influence building with ask says that you're involving me in the decision. Tell says it's all about me, and it becomes almost like a dictator, and it really causes people. We mentioned in a previous podcast about salute and stay mute. Just do what you're told.
Yeah. Which
then reduces engagement. It's not a winning formula.
That's right.
So I definitely want to be on the ask side.
Yeah, I love that. Second one we have for you is focus versus distracted.
Yes.
And for me, when I think about how you increase your influence, when we use the word focus, it's really about, do your people feel like when you're having a conversation with them or you're in a meeting with them, that this is the most important thing that you could be working on or talking about at that moment, no matter what it is? Or are you distracted like you talked about? And so in order to increase your influence, you need to be focused on the team, the individuals, the conversation, the meeting, the people. I'll never forget, I was visiting a client of ours, and this individual that was in this organization, I would have level 1 influence with him. He has level 1 influence with me. We don't really know each other that well. We know our titles in the different organizations. And I'll never forget, I walked into his office, really for maybe the first or second time that we met. He was working on his laptop, and he saw me walk in. He shut his laptop, stood up, shook my hand, and then we had a 25-minute conversation like I was the most important thing. And I thought, left there, I goes, man, like your influence has grown with me because of the way that you interacted and focused on.
Yeah, versus being distracted. If he'd have left his laptop open, his phone's on the desk, he's looking around, checking on text messages, reading stuff while he's appearing to try and talk to you. Are you influenced by that? Are you willing to give that person influence over you that you're going to willingly participate with them? I don't think so. It really speaks, distraction speaks that you don't value me. And so when you're focused and pay attention and you're present, you value people to do that.
Well, the third one, I'm going to let you go first here, because I struggle with this a little bit. And so I want you to talk about the negative side of this.
Yeah,
okay?
So it was neat versus messy. This I probably could have used different words. But
I like it. We're keeping it simple.
Yeah, but I'm thinking if you walk in my office and I'm completely disorganized, it kind of leads into unprepared. I don't know where my things are. I'm searching for things. I'm disheveled, disarray. It could even carry over into my dress and how I appear to people that I'm not put together. It really breeds some concern with people that you don't have it all together.
Yeah.
Now, is this saying if you have a messy office, you can't be an effective leader? No, I'm not saying that at all. But I'm saying if you're trying to gain influence with people, I'm more influenced by people who are organized and put together. So are you a neat freak?
No, I'm not. And that's why I was like, I want to hear your side of the story first. But I think it's interesting about this, what I was thinking about, is that we talk about increasing your influence. And so in this example that I'm going to give you, it's really about increasing your influence from level 2 to level 3. So to your point, let's say I'm working for a leader and he has level, or she has level 2 influence with me, and I go into his or her office and it's a complete disaster, and I start thinking about, man, do we really know what our KPIs are? Do we really know where the next project is? Whatever. And I go, I don't know. Now, some people that might not bother. And so you just got to begin thinking about that. And so I do think also under the neat side that people do try to model leadership in certain ways, and your people will follow at sometimes. And I think this is a great way to be able to do that.
Hey, podcast listeners. Do you have a clear plan for growth? Achieving big results most often does not require big life changes. Small improvements over time compound into big results. Download the Maxwell Leadership app. It's the new free app where our expert guides and John Maxwell help you pace your leadership journey and set a clear plan for your own personal growth. You can also find all sorts of resources on the Maxwell Leadership app, including this podcast, information on upcoming events, and much more. Just search Maxwell Leadership in your app store and download the app today.
Number 4, we have talk versus yell.
I think this was obvious.
Yeah, this is right. Here's what I thought when I said this, to increase your influence, is that people care more about hearing your voice than it is what you're saying at times. And this really goes back to communication as a leadership competency that there's a deficit of this in any organization around the world. And so they do care about that. Now they may not necessarily care exactly what you're saying, but they want to hear the leader's voice. And the more they hear your voice, I think that'll increase your influence versus
yelling or raising your voice
man.
or losing your temper, having emotion around this. I'm thinking about what we talked earlier. What are people watching for? Your actions, that's obviously. How about your reactions? How do you handle bad news? How do you handle difficult information? And if you go into to anger or emotional spraying on people, your emotions, and raising your voice and that sort of thing, it is an instant turnoff for most people when it comes to influencing me. I'm going to back away, pull back on that. I'm much more influenced by a consistent behavior of you're managed when it's good, you're managed when it's bad. You talk it's a respect. It's a advent of respect toward people. Is I don't yell at people.
Yeah,
that's disrespectful. And so it may seem like a small one, but it's probably more obvious than some of the others. But
and I think in the heat of the moment, and when you're backs up against the wall, some leaders don't understand that.
Good.
And I would encourage you to dig into that a little bit. Well, the fifth one that we're going to bring to you today is you help your influence by what we call kind of measured or measuring versus maybe being rushed or reactive in a way. And I'll let you speak to that in just a minute. For me, when I think about the word measured or measuring, it comes with thought. The leader has thought through. It's a measured approach. The other thing I took it was also measuring results or measuring what the team is doing or where you're going or what you're leading. And, what you measure gets done. And everybody wants to be a part of a winning team, right, versus a losing team. And so the only way to really know if you're winning versus losing and how to correct and what not to correct is to measure what you're doing.
Yeah, I think what I was going with measured versus rushed is that are you and you said it was thoughtful? Are you more precise? Are you rushed? Are you just going from thing to thing to thing? Is it too much for people to keep up? You don't have a measured approach to things, so you're making me feel almost disheveled again and out of sorts, and you're in such a hurry with things that you don't. John would say, stop and walk among the crowd, be among the people. That you're always rush to do things that is problematic.
I love it. All right, the next one we're going to talk about, number 6 on the chart, is on time versus late. For me, this is really about respecting other people. And I need to get better at this. I think even the way we calendar things could help you become more on time, just so that you're showing respect and engagement level with other team members.
Yeah, and I think it speaks for itself that if you're late, you're disrespecting, you're not being there. Next one says margin versus maxed out. Yeah. Why are we laughing? Because this is our life. This is actually something we battle with right now.
We do. And several, if you haven't listened to an episode we did several weeks ago around the new kind of hot buzz around quiet quitting, I would encourage you to do that. We talked a little bit about this, and is that we've got to do a better job as leaders of modeling margin in our own life, and then also talking about and encouraging your team to have margin in their life. And when you do that, I think it increases your influence.
Yeah, when you're maxed out, you're just sending a bad message. People don't. I don't even want to approach my leader because I don't want to add something else. They seem like they're stressed out. They're going to fall apart. They're over the top. They're consumed completely. Yeah, I'll just keep it to myself. Now my level of engagement.
Number 8 is respond versus react. And this, for me, when you talk about, sometimes when people will engage you, voicemail, text, email, this is where I went with this personally, and I don't respond, which happens, then that is nothing favorable with your influence. But when you do respond in a way that it's consistent and it increases your influence. I actually, just this morning, before we recorded this episode, there was an email where a team member of mine sent that added value to me in some research that I was doing, and I had not responded to it. Didn't even acknowledge it, but I was grateful for it, and I thought, man, I need to respond. And so I just responded and said, thank you. This helped me a ton. That's all it takes.
Yeah.
But the fact that and think about what that feels like for us when we add value to people, we're doing something, we get no response. We're just like,
yep.
Yeah.
And I think about this also from a different approach on that, about react. Again, it's I call it mind the gap between what happened, what someone said. If I go quickly, as there's no gap, then I have a reaction that's usually not that good.
Yeah.
But if I can pause for a moment and have a gap there, I can respond in a more thoughtful way. But I actually like where you took it too, is that there's really a lot of influence building in being responsive to people. That's maybe can add that to the list.
Yeah.
The next one, number 9, says consistent versus erratic. Boy, that's a big one. It kind of goes back to some of the ones we talked about. It kind of relates back to, are you, when you're triggered, when things go south, when there's tension in the air, a challenge, are you all over the place, or does your emotion and your behavior have a consistency to it?
Yeah, and I think this, for me, when you increase your influence through consistency, it comes down to the word approachable. And I think when you are approachable, no matter what is going on around you, that increases your influence.
I agree.
Number 10, the difference here is listener versus talker. And for me, our team, our people want to be heard, period. Now, we're not saying hear them. We're saying listen to them. I say that because I maybe have that being told to me at home sometimes. And so I think the better listener, we all can become better listeners. And I think the better listener we become, the more we'll increase our influence.
Yeah, you talk too much. You don't trust people that talk all the time.
Too many words.
Again, it goes back to being measured about what are you talking? Are you listening? Are you listening more than you talk? People, they're influenced by people that ask good questions and then listen to the answers. You don't have to be always talking over people to do that.
Or whatever they're talking about, you got a better story and you're one-upping
beat my
them
story,
and, all that stuff.
Don't do that. Number 11, I threw this in because can you have a sense of humor, or are you always serious? Humor versus serious.
I've worked for a lot of leaders, and I've had some serious, right? But they had great influence with me. But there's just a different level of influence and connection for me personally. Maybe not everybody listening, to where when there's humor, and I just think it drives realness, it drives engagement, and then in turn increases your influence.
And I love it because we do laugh a lot here. We take the work seriously. We don't take ourselves seriously, and we take shots at each other, and we laugh at each other. Even here in the studio today, we've laughed pretty hard with.
We're
Jake.
an hour and a half late because Jake kept throwing daggers at us.
Yes,
but we laughed.
No, we laughed. We had a good time. All right, number 12, one of my favorites is: are you teachable, or are you the know-it-all? And I just find that it's one of my favorite words in leadership, is that are you showing yourself teachable, or do you the leader that comes in and you have all the answers, you never ask any questions, you tell people all the things, and it just doesn't bode well for influence when you have all the answers.
As a leader, I never forget this illustration, and I'm not sure who I heard it from first, where you want to be that leader, that individual, to where when you walk in a room and then you leave the room feels smarter than it did maybe before you had that conversation. But what you don't want in a leader, or you don't want to represent yourself and won't increase your influence, is if you walk into a room and they go, well, man, he obviously thinks he was the smartest person in the room. Remember, I said thinks, because I guarantee you were not.
You never are.
But that just has that aura when it's not good when you walk in as if you know it all and you're the subject matter expert. You may be. But, man, you do not need to do that. You need to go in there with a teachable heart, and I think if you do that, it increases your influence. So as we wrap up, this was simple, right, but maybe not easy to live out, that Perry put together for us in regards to this chart. And I would encourage you, this will be part of the learner guide.
Yep.
You can download this, and there's a couple of things you can do with this. Number one, you can go through this and self-evaluate. And you probably have examples. I could go down, I could give you examples right now on both sides of this chart that I've done in the last week. And I would want to kind of say, okay, well, how do I fix some of these things that maybe hurt my influence? The other thing you may want to do is say, here, go to your team. This would be an interesting idea.
Oh,
here we go.
Uh-oh. Not a self-evaluation,
Wait a minute.
a team evaluation.
Yeah. I'm not doing this. This is just a good idea.
Give me that sheet.
Perry, our next Monday meeting is going to be Perry's going to be like, Chris, I thought you had a team exercise for all of us to do. Yeah. Maybe you hand it out, and then you have your team member just put a check on which side they feel like that you model more, the one that helps or the one that hurts. And then it would be an awful telling if they could give you good feedback with that. But simple, Not easy to live out, but I would encourage you to review these. That this is the foundation for you continuing to build your leadership and influence with the team.
I'll have mine to you before the end of the day.
That's right.
All right. Thank you, Chris. And just a reminder that maxwellleadership.com/podcast, if you'd like to leave a question, leave a comment, if you'd like to learn more about our offerings, we do love hearing from you, and we're so grateful that you would spend this time with us. That's all today from the Maxwell Leadership Executive Podcast.